The ASUS Zenbook 14 is arguably one of their mainstream value-focused productivity laptop. And I liked it a lot just because it offered good performance, battery life was pretty good, and the design and build quality was also respectable. But for 2026, we're here at Computex with a new revision, or more specifically, a new design of the Zenbook 14. And it looks a lot better. So this is the new Zenbook 14 for 2026. As you can see, it comes in 3 colors. We have Arctic Blue, there's Zabrinski Beige, and there is Komodo Pink. Now, you guys can tell me which one you like the most, but I personally am going with Zabrinski Beige just because I like anything that's beige. But let's start with the design. And the first thing you're gonna notice is they've moved away from that boxy, sharp, edgy vibe to something a little more rounded. So it's easier to carry around with one hand. It's not gonna cut through your wrists or when you're typing for longer periods of time. And they've also switched from just aluminum to Ceraluminum throughout the entire chassis. So the top lid features Ceraluminum on top of aluminum, and it just feels really nice. It's super smooth. It also has the anti-fingerprint coating surface treatment done to it. So that ensures that the laptop stays pretty clean and not, covered with smudges, which is great. And it's the other touch points that are also really interesting. First thing that actually comes to my mind is just touch points, right? For example, you can open the lid with one hand. That's awesome. You weren't able to do that with the previous generation Zenbook 14. The build quality feels a lot better. It's more refined. And you can see that the color has actually shifted towards the interior space. So you have sort of a darker palette with the keycaps. The same thing goes for the Zabrinski Beige and the Komodo Pink. You can see that the color theme is pretty consistent across the chassis. I love that. I also love the font styling of these laptops. I really hope that the ROG Zephyrus team is taking notes because this looks a lot more cleaner than that. And the lid features a magnetic lip. So it gives you that satisfying sound when you close the lid and open the lid. It's really giving me those MacBook vibes. And the idea here for ASUS is to offer the Zenbook 14 at that sub $1,000 price point, but there's a catch. You see, ASUS is offering the Zenbook 14 in 3 platforms. There's Qualcomm, AMD, and Intel. The Qualcomm spec is actually the most interesting, I guess the most questionable spec. The reason for that is they decided to go with the X1P Purwa architecture, and we all know how that is. The performance, it's questionable, but I guess it's one of the reasons why they decided to keep it under that $1,000, maybe sub $1,000 price tag. The AMD version comes with the Gorgon Point chip, but supposedly you can configure it with a Kraken Point CPU later on. And then the Intel model comes with Intel's Panther Lake processor. In terms of power levels, Qualcomm is expected to run around 28 watts. AMD and Intel are expected to run around 35 watts. But there are also some other minor spec differences between these 3 platforms. With the Intel model, it seems like ASUS has actually added a lot more premium features to it. I'm gonna start with the display. This thing is a 3K Lumina OLED 120 Hz panel, so it's a lot nicer, it's smoother, it's fluid to work with. Whereas AMD and Qualcomm, they feature 60 Hz display. So that's where you're gonna notice a little bit of that price difference. In terms of ports, you're gonna get USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C. Now, shifting a little bit from the spec side, I wanna talk about the keyboard and trackpad, the interior space on these laptops, because it's a huge improvement compared to the first generation. I mean, just take a look at it side by side. This is what the previous Zenbook 14 looked like, and this is what the new one looks like. I mean, it's more cleaner, it's more refined. The trackpad feels a lot better, it's smoother, it's a glass surface, which is awesome. The key travel, again, Zenbooks have always had one of the best keyboards on their lineup, and this one features 1.7 millimeters of key travel, which is great, feels great. It's backlit. That's awesome. Now, there are some other improvements done to the thermal system with the new Zenbook 14. As you can see, they've increased the diameter of the fan, so that allows these chips to run at higher wattages. The one compromise that they've done is the battery size has actually decreased this year. So we're going from 75 watt hours on the previous generation to 70 watt hours. Other than that, in terms of upgradability, well, the only thing that's user replaceable is the M.2 SSD, which is Gen 4 and not Gen 5. The memory is soldered on. So that is the Zenbook 14 from ASUS. And honestly, guys, I'm actually excited about this laptop. The only thing I'm a little bit worried about is pricing for the Intel model and the AMD model. I just hope that it's not going to be extremely expensive, although we are seeing that as a trend lately with Windows laptops. So yeah.
What's your favorite color?
My favorite color? It's got to be the Zabrinski Beige, man, because it matches my shirt.
really does.
Yeah, it does.
Compliments your style.
But apparently Mike doesn't like it. He thinks it looks like a cardboard. So I don't know. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree. And now let's move on to the Vivobook S14 and S16. Now this is actually a very interesting lineup because there are two versions of the S14 and S16. Now I'm going to focus on the S14 just because it's smaller and I really don't have space to talk about the 16-inch laptop. But as you can see, the first version has a dual hinge design, whereas the second version has a single hinge design. And both of them actually go all the way to 100 degrees flat, which is great. But the key differences between these two platforms is that the one with the dual hinge design comes with the Qualcomm X1P Turbo architecture. Once again, not sure why ASUS has decided to go with an older chip, but that's what we get here. Now the Intel version with the single hinge design comes with Intel's Wildcat Lake architecture. And that is supposed to be one of those platforms that's supposed to be a little more power efficient. I think you're only getting 8 cores or something like that. So yeah, it's not going to be as powerful as the Panther Lake stuff, but you are compromising on a lot of other things. For example, even though it supports Thunderbolt, these laptops don't come with Thunderbolt. And that's because ASUS is, again, aiming the Vivobook to hit that sub $1,000 price tag. And if they needed to add Thunderbolt, it has to go through certification with Intel, which adds more cost. Now, unfortunately, the Wildcat Lake architecture won't be making its way into the States or the US market. And the reason for that is unknown. I have no idea. So the only thing you're going to be getting is the Qualcomm version. So there's that. And also, the Wildcat architecture is only going to be paired with 8 gigabytes of memory. Yeah, 8 gigabytes on a Windows laptop. Let me know what you guys think about in the comments. I'm pretty sure most of your Chrome tabs are consuming more than 12 gigs. So yeah, I don't know how that's going to play out. So the Wildcat Lake platform features slower ports. So it's USB 3.2 Gen 1, whereas the Qualcomm version is, again, faster ports. And everything else is kind of basic. So the display, for example, it's your standard 60 hertz IPS panel. The overall design is pretty clean and minimal. It is an all metal chassis, which is really nice. And also you can open this thing with one hand, just like the Zenbook. So that's great. The keyboard doesn't feel as refined as the Zenbook series, but it still, gets a job done. In terms of battery capacities, they are smaller compared to the Zenbook. So in the Zenbook, it was 70 watt hours, whereas on the Vivobook, it's 52.5 watt hours. Now, interestingly, I thought that the Vivobook S16 was going to have a larger battery, but unfortunately it's not. So this right here is the Vivobook S16 with the Qualcomm chip, and the reason why I can identify that is because it has the dual hinge design over here. This one actually features a 52.5 hour battery. I mean, they had the room for it, but I guess maybe they wanted to cut the cost. Personally, I think if they added a 99.9 watt hour battery, this thing would have been an incredible battery life champ, especially since it's paired to a first gen Qualcomm CPU. So yeah, that's the Vivobook stuff from ASUS.
But that's not it for this video, because I wanted to talk about what's going on the ROG gaming side. Now look, most of their lineup, it's pretty much the same with a couple of little advances in technology here and there. So on the Strix G series, we're getting 300 hertz displays, and on the Strix G18, we're getting the new 5070 12 gig card. But what I really wanted to focus on here is what's happening with their flagship lineup, sort of like the technological leader. This is where all of the new advances are being packed into. The biggest thing that is added to this is something that ROG has been working on for, I would guess you would say, quite some time. You've actually heard some coverage about this in the past, but it's finally here. So they have a 4K mini LED display on the Strix Scar 18. So they said to themselves, look, what else can we do with mini LED that hasn't been done before? And one of the main challenges that has been out there with LED and LCD and now OLED technology is motion clarity. The one thing that everybody has been missing up to this point, at least in the notebook space, is how do you get that CRT-like smooth image transition when you're gaming, especially in those high-speed first-person shooter games? Well, their Nebula ELMB technology, so that is extreme low motion blur, it basically takes care of that by utilizing the pixel technology inside of the LED monitor to strobe the backlight in order to remove like a ton of blur. And I can talk about this until like the cows come home, right? But you have to see this in person to believe it. Everybody here, Ebert, Dimitri, Robert, me, we all sat in front of this display and turned it on and off. And the effect is I would say it's incredible. I've seen ULMB, I've seen G-Sync Pulsar in person, and it compares really well to both of those on a laptop. Now, this is a desktop replacement, so you would expect the best panel technologies to be in something that you pay this much for. Now, we're gonna have a little bit more in-depth look at Nebula ELMB in the coming weeks and months, so I'm gonna cut that off there without getting too far into it, but there's also some really amazing coverage that's out there from the folks like LTT. They've done a full breakdown about the technology, so I recommend that you go check out their video right up here. But ROG, they didn't stop there. They didn't just slap on this technology and call it a day. There's a couple of other very subtle differences between this version of the SCAR 18 and the one we looked at when the RTX 5000 series first launched. First of all, there's a very, very minor increase in the overall Z height. And the reason for that is they needed to incorporate a brand new updated cooling system. So what they have is thicker fans to increase airflow, and that airflow gets pushed through a new sandwich style heatsink that's a little bit taller, and it also promotes more airflow through it. Now, in a typical scenario, you wouldn't need that additional airflow because this laptop already had one of the best cooling systems around. But what ASUS has done is they're using the HX Plus series and pushing that CPU to at least 200 watts of continuous power. That's probably like some of the most that we've seen from a laptop. In addition to that, total platform power is now 300 watts. So we're really approaching that quasi-desktop replacement experience. And to continue that focus on cooling, they've also acknowledged the fact that PCIe Gen 5 SSDs do run quite a bit hotter than the Gen 4. So what they've done is they've added copper contact plates to both SSD slots. So anyways, that's a lot to take in. I know we're gonna be reviewing this once we get our hands on it. I'm Mike with Hardware Canucks, and Eber's sitting right here, coaching me along. Look at that, he's like a director. And I hope that you're enjoying our Computex coverage from 2026, and I'll see you, and the whole team will see you in the next one. Have a great day, guys.